detail.
I forgot to start it.
Just wondering what the schedule on that is. Any updated results there?
We do not have any updated. We are scheduled to do it this month. We've gone to quarterly. So that puts us into, I believe, on Monday, we're going to be doing sodium, VOCs, and also bacteria for our other 4 stations that we didn't do before.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
No problem.
Any other questions? Water quality? Excellent. Okay, how about the superintendent's report?
Okay, what I'm going to do here is we had skipped our December meeting, so I'm going to give a quick quality report on that. It's very short, not much to report, but I can give you at least the pumpage and how we were going from there. So this is the November report, which should have been read in December, which is being read now in January. For November of 2021, we pumped 9,060,000 gallons of water. In November of 2022, we pumped 6,941,000 gallons of water, for a difference of 2,119,000 less than 2021. I believe in 2021, we had a little, just about 2 inches of rain. In 2022, we had just over 1 inch of rain, which should make it backwards, but it doesn't. I think actually people were conserving in 2022. We had some pretty good weather, but it was right around, I think they said the 50-degree mark, 45 to 50-degree mark going through. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm actually happy to see that we were using less water. Any question on usage?
So Chris, if I'm looking at your graph here, it looks like we're down, if I get this correct. Well, we're probably equal in September to last year, slightly up, but then we're down in October. But it looks like we're down consistently in July, August, September, and October, comparing back to 2020. Is that correct? What I'm really after here is I'm trying to see if we're seeing any effect with the irrigation policy. And I know it's hard to read that because of rainfall variability.
Well,
but
we've been down consistently since October, according, I believe, to the graph. I have to apologize. I had to, without seeing the graph in color, I have it in black and white in front of me. I did it off the home when I got home here today. But I believe that we were higher actually in July, August, and September. But since October, November, and December, we have been consistently less.
No.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Sorry, for some reason I'm not able to rotate this.
That's okay. I can turn my head sideways like I just did.
My Adobe is acting up.
Yeah, so the yellow that's on there is we have been higher actually for July, August, and September.
Yeah,
but consistently since October. Correct. But we're and actually we're still lower in than some of the, well, at least in August, than we were the years before when we had the real high usage.
Nice job, Jen.
Thanks. Phew.
But I mean, just looking at those few years that are displayed there, you would say that the irrigation policy is having an effect.
Yes.
Right?
What? I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't hear you.
I think if you take it with a grain of salt and say there's obviously missing data, and we're just looking at a year and a half since the irrigation policy went into effect, or not even a year and a half, a year for that policy. If you look at the rate increases, I mean, between the rate increases and the irrigation policy, it looks like something's working there.
I don't see that. I don't see that. I'm an English major, but I study pictures. And I think the bars for 2022 are not that much different than the bars for 2018, 2019, before we instituted these policies. So I still don't think it's really statistically or visually significant.
It's certainly having an effect on the number of phone calls I'm getting this week now that the bills have gone out. So I do have a feeling that we will see an impact next year, because this billing cycle, this July to December, is really the first irrigation season that these rates are in effect, and people are just getting those bills now. So the phone is ringing.
Well, that's, in my view, that's probably a good thing. And I apologize for that, Jen, because I know you're the recipient of the calls and I'm sure you handle them well. I will just share with the other commissioners that I was on a call earlier this week. One of my clients is the town of Manchester by the Sea on the North Shore. We were on a call with I was very impressed with a consultant on water rates on this exact issue, conservation. And, you know, basically we were talking about the question of how do you raise rates and encourage conservation, and when do you know you're starting to get results? And honestly, he's been working all across the country on this, and he basically said it's very location specific, and it's really hard to predict. But what he suggested is keep raising the rates until you see a decline, and then you'll know that you're hitting the area where you're gonna get some results with conservation. So that's the only reason I asked the question. I keep looking at this data, and I agree with you, Mark. It's really hard. You're right. Comparing back to the previous years, it doesn't look like we're much down. So I, for one, would still consider raising the rates again to see if we can, hit a point, certainly at the higher tiers. And I know this is on the agenda later tonight, which is one of the reasons I wanted to ask it now. My sense is, I agree with Mark, that we're not really seeing a significant benefit yet, although certainly down from 2 years ago, which is the black line here, I think 2020.
But that year was the anomaly, Scott. That's much higher than the other years before and after.
Right.
That was the COVID year when everybody flooded into town.
Yep. All right, well, I don't need to belabor this. We can, I just wanted to kind of take a look at this. I think we should keep looking at it.
Yeah, we got to look at it. Regardless, we're down. We're pumping less water, which is what we want to see. And I agree with Chris that that's a good thing. Okay. Jen, when you change that, I lost my access. There we go. There it is, to my agenda. So let me get this up.
I still got to have a report and more to go, so I can keep going.
Yep.
We're all
Yep.
set.
Go ahead.
Under a little bit on general discussion, we did have one new water service put in on Thankful Lane during November, and no replacement services. And we continued to be into a level 1 drought through November. And that takes care of November. Now I'll get into December here. As we showed just now on the graph, December, we pumped 8,451,000 gallons of water. And in 2022, we pumped 6,962,000 gallons of water, for a difference of 1,489,000 less than 2021. The big difference there is that in 2021, we had 0.39 inches of water during the entire month in November. No snow, just had very dry December. And in December of 2022, as we all know, because it was just here, we had 3.71 inches of rain in Barnstable. So we did get quite a bit of rain during, even though we had the mild winter, December, there was quite a bit of rain also that's been able to start replenishing. I will tell you, I did check today, and we are not quite to the same point with groundwater levels that we were last year at this time at our the groundwater they use over by the high school. They're both, it was like 26.0, 0.25 this morning, and it was like 26.36 last year at the same date and time. So it's just about the same level that it was at this time last year. With ground levels, we could use a lot more rain. As you know, the drought continued through last year, all the way right to the spring. I think it went off for like 2 weeks before they put it back on, or a month. So from there, I'll go a little further as to the general discussion. We didn't have any new water services, but we did have one replacement service over on Highland Ave during December. We continue to be in a level 1 drought. It was just declared on January 13th right now. And just going to bring up something that's been going on for the last year or so. We have one house over on Route 28 that has called me and saved water. It was quite a bit of time before I think we figured out what's going on, but they would have some dirty water complaints. Would call up and say that the water was dirty for an hour, then it cleaned up. This is what it looked like, and they would save pictures and everything else. They've still been getting it every few months. It seems to only happen when we have high winds. They're very close, actually, are one tap basically away from where our Newtown Road water tank feeds Route 28, which I believe after getting some tests done, they said there was sediment in the bottom, and I think that tank's actually shaking up during high wind storms and puts it out. They're usually the only ones that complain. This time I came back from the long weekend and we had the high winds over the weekend. There was a complaint that had happened. I have not responded to her yet, as I was getting, last Friday I sent out for quotes to be cleaned, the tanks. And I wanted to be able to tell her that, you know, I have the quotes and that I have a schedule on hand right now, or them, excuse me. But I did find out from one of the guys that was on call that he did get a call from somebody down the street from her that, from them, excuse me, that had also dirty water at the time. So it seems to be a problem that's going on. I have gone out to get prices to clean out the tanks inside. I have the money in the budget to do it. I believe it has to be done. In the beginning, I was a little hesitant for one person in town to spend the money to drain a tank, clean it out, get the sediment out and everything else. But we weren't sure if it was just their house or the water tank that this was happening to. With somebody complaining down the street, I'm a little more positive it's there. And I have to do, I had asked the guy, I did get a call to get it cleaned, but he included power washing the outside and renting a man lift and everything else. And it was astronomical how much they wanted to do it. So I sent him back on Friday and said, can you just send me a price with cleaning the inside and doing a couple sanitary things to the tank, and I can go from there. He sent me the price this morning. I finally got it. So I sent it out to a couple different tank companies so I can get a comparative bid on it. So like anything, it takes a little bit of time being a municipality to get something done, but at least I have something to respond to her with now and say, we're getting prices now. We're planning on it. I don't have a timeline, but please be patient.
Was it done last, Chris?
Excuse me?
When was it last cleaned from the sediment?
I believe it was like 3 years ago.
Is that a typical length of time?
Usually it's 5. I usually get them cleaned inside on 5 times, and basically it's a power wash out. What I'm going to do this time is use a chemical they call Pantonite, which will take the biofilm off that's there and clean it up a little more. So it might help out a little bit more. So I put the bid out to either using Pantonite or something equal to.
That's really interesting. How did you deduce about the wind? That's pretty cool.
It was just something that after about the second time she did it, we were talking, we said, geez, boy, it was awful windy over the weekend. And it always seems to happen on a weekend when a storm comes in. And she doesn't call, she emails me. So we don't find out till Monday. By the time we get there, everything's clean. And then she hands us the little cup and says, but this is what it looked like, you know, and hands it to you. And it's tough because it does clean up. It just, usually it was within an hour. Now this time it was a lot longer and she's getting more upset.
Is it mostly iron, manganese that's,
It looks more like iron than anything. It's more of a reddish debris than anything.
Mhm.
But if I was to wash it out, you would see nothing but black coming out. I think that the iron, for some reason, and this is only a guess, might be a little lighter and might float a little more. The manganese, it might sink. I'm not positive on that, but that's just a thought of mine.
now the pantonite, that's for cleaning the inside of the tank.
Correct. It's a wash that goes down and will take that biofilm, the redness off the inside of the tank that you can see that sticks to the side of the tank and stuff like that. And we'll wash it off and start from new, basically. And get rid of the sediment at the same time.
Okay. And when we have some money for that tank, you feel, what about the West Street tank? You think you want?
We have a dedicated fund for that,
Right,
or maintenance on it. So I have informed Ray that we will be probably using some funds out of there. I just didn't know how much at the time. He sent me an email, asked me about that and when the truck would be here, the new truck, and when we planned on using some electrical funds from the special appropriation. And I had sent him back some of the stuff on that. We will be expecting, just to throw that in there, the truck possibly will be here next month, the new truck.
good.
All right, and that
Anything
finishes my, yep, that's what I got.
That's it. Any other questions? Commissioners? Okay, thanks for those 2 months worth of updates. Moving on to old business, source water protection with Scott Horsley and Tom Cambereri. And Tom is here or was here a few minutes ago.
I think he's here.
And test
Yeah, I'll just,
monitoring wells. Like to put those two together.
Hi, I'm here.
I'll
Great.
just directly turn this over to Tom. I think everybody knows what we're doing here. We're doing some groundwater flow direction analysis in the main well field. Tom, take it away.
Okay, thanks. Tom, can you have me or Jen share my screen?
Yep, I'll make you a presenter.
Okay, doke. Okay, can you see my PDF?
Can.
Everybody? Okay. I sent this to the Water District in November. Basically a progress report of what was able to accomplish for the project. And basically the water table mapping project was, hey, let's see how many wells are out there already, because putting together a water table map can consist of going out there with a well rig and drilling all kinds of wells and looking for and then surveying them. So the best thing is, well, let's look to see where there are some existing wells so that we don't repeat things, because that's happened many times in projects. Well drillers go out there with their geologist and they're drilling a well and somebody walks up and says, well, there's a well right here. Yeah, it's happened to me a couple times, being the person that walked up to say there's a well right there. What are you doing here? So anyway, we identified 43 sites working with Chris and his expert staff there. I've got to say that working with them has been very good, very easy, and very insightful and so helpful. We identified 43 sites in all. It turns out that, well, I'll tell you on the map. Little backstories on these things, and of the 43 sites that we identified, we could verify 19 sites that were still you could point to and touch and all that. The other ones were gone. And of those, 15 were viable for water table maps. So, I just kind of did a very rough calculation. If you had to recreate that and get a well rig out there to put the 15 well points in through that unsaturated zone, because most of the well field is pretty high elevation. They're about like 60 feet above mean sea, and your water table is down around 30 some odd. So 25 to 30. So, you've got to drill some depth to get to that water table. And that's how much I thought it might cost, just a FYI. The other thing with the water table mapping program, you've got to identify the benchmarks, real benchmark elevations above mean sea level. And from those, you can use the benchmarks to survey in all those wells and be able to come up with a elevation of the water table by measuring the depth to water and subtracting that from the elevation of the top of the well gives you the elevation of the top of the water table. Be more clear in the next couple maps. So part of my project was to do all this and come up with a plan for implementing, to say, okay, how many wells do we have? What do we need? Do we need to drill wells? How are we going to get these wells surveyed and put all this together? So that is basically the gist of the November memo. So what I included is these were all the data points that we found. A number of them were destroyed, not there anymore. The interesting story here is the gas station next to a Center for the Arts had a spill of like all these gas stations, they had petroleum hydrocarbons that really didn't migrate too far. They were biodegraded, anaerobic biological degradation, and then but later on they found this other substance, MTBE, methyl tertiary butyl ether, that was put into the gasoline as an oxygenation enhancer. They ended up taking that out because there were so many groundwater problems and all that, and they decided to put ethanol in, much to the woe of many small gasoline engine operators. But the MTBE spill happened, and I think it went down over towards the wells. I think it was well 2 that had the highest hits, if I'm not mistaken, Chris.
Correct.
Yeah. And so there's actually, this is contamination showing up in the water supply well down here. So anyway, they did a huge investigation, put in all these wells and measured MTBE in the groundwater. The site's been closed, MTBE's gone, but the wells are still there. So that was pretty cool to find all these wells, to find the files that Chris was holding on to up there in the office in the filing cabinets, and wow, there's all that stuff. Of course, Chris knew it was there, so pointed me right to it. So we get down to this sector. These are the number of existing wells that we have in the area, and so the objective of the project is to do water table map to these stations in blue, 4, 1, and 2. So we're looking for data points for which we can draw contours that, by the modeling, kind of go in this north, east, the south, west trajectory angle. And then we went and found some benchmarks. So we've got a number of benchmarks through the study area, which is really good. It's really a head start in that aspect of now we know where the benchmarks are and what do we need to do with those. So also looking at this is like, well, it would be better. It would be nice if we could have some lateral control points on this water table map. And this is, of course, a little river here. And I proposed a number of, dry point wells to go in. These could be not excavated, but installed by hand with a kind of a post hole hammer into the ground. And then also, I also added these wells that run up the Little River. These are the old, these are the wells that are associated with the old main station. So these are pending here. They've been identified in the field and all that. I still need to go out with staff to just take some preliminary measurements. So I've got a number of dry point wells to go into to secure this. And then as I was talking to, all right, so this is where we were in November, and this is my spreadsheet here. Here's all the wells that we had. They are, this is kind of out of the picture. These were wells that were down in Main Street. So we couldn't find those, but we don't need them anyway. These were all the ones associated with the Citgo station. These were ones that the Cotuit Water District put in for the MTBE, and these are all the wells, the test wells. So you've got a pumping station, and each pumping station has test wells that they put in. And when you think about the time when they put all these wells in, 60s and 70s and 80s, those wells have been kind of sitting out there. So one of the cool things we had to do was not only identify them, but open them up for the first time. So using giant wrenches and breaker bars and brute strength of three or four people at a time, we were able to actually open those things up and take measurements and all that. So here we go. Here, these are the ones that are viable over here with some initial depth to water, total depth measurements. In talking to some initial reactions that I got from Commissioner Horsley. Commissioner Horsley was wondering about, was there enough coverage of the water table mapping over towards the northwest part of the field. And I kind of agreed, yeah, they could use another point. And also there's a situation here with this land use, and I'm not sure what the name of it is, but you look back over the historical digital images of this place, and it's been used for a lot of different things. So this well could serve a multi-purpose of a water table map and a water quality sample, just to see what's going on there. Not that we've seen anything that's shown up in the supply wells that's abnormal. There's little traces of PFAS, but I know this could be an assurance, provide some assurance for the district. So here's kind of the updated map here. The existing data points, the dry points, the pending samples, the benchmarks, and this is the proposed well over here. And so that's initially, and I'm looking forward to your comments. I mean, it's potential that other wells could be drilled if the commissioners felt that there was another reason for that. And one other reason I thought of after this was if you wanted to institute a program where water levels were taken automatically with a data logger. We had studied before the Little River. Another one potentially could be drilled down in the Little River Valley with a regular well with a locking cap and everything like that, and it would be outfitted for transducer deployment. And so that's kind of another thing that as we're doing this, it comes up, and it's worth thinking about. Early this month, I sent in, part of the program was to come up with a cost evaluation or just scope out what the water table mapping project would be in the phase 2. So this was all the phase 1 work done and over. And phase 2 would be just some field preparation, confirming what's going on, getting dig safe for proposed wells, coordinating, and then getting the drive point equipment put in, field installations, installing the drive points, oversee the drillers, prepare new field point spreadsheets, and field survey. Hey, I had a great thing that happened is part of the project was this benchmark issue, and I was thinking, well, if I could get a total station, it's possible I could do something with intolerance with staff and all that, but I couldn't find one for the life of me that was available, and I couldn't find one to rent. And so the other option would be, well, putting together an RFQ for a survey team to go out there and do that. The other one was talking to the town surveyor, Shane Bremer, and I have worked with him in the past on a couple different projects, so we do get along together, and we were able to. So in talking to him, I worked with Chris to put together a letter on behalf of the district asking for the town services. He checked it out with a DPW engineer, Superintendent Santos, and said, yeah, this would be a worthwhile thing to do. So he's on the shelf, ready to come out to help with the survey. And so that's like a town service. I don't know what a survey for elevation would go for if you went out for a bid. I know I asked for a plot plan of my 1/4 acre here in Centerville, and it came up to be like $4,000. So and again, the thing with these water table maps is we're not talking about a survey within a foot. We've got to get down into the tenths of a foot and look to get actually into the fractions of hundredths of a foot tolerance. So it's pretty exacting. So anyway, the field survey, the water table mapping, put the whole thing together, and it came up with an estimated cost. This is again, I think the updated map. So I'll just leave it here, and that's where we are right now. You've got a proposal for phase 2. I had thought of another thing afterwards is the district might use a water level meter to add on to that as well. Any questions?
Okay,
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, we'll open it up for questions for the from the commissioners. I have one just for clarification. What are the functions of the drive points, and why are they all focused in the Little River bed and banks?
Well, they would give kind of lateral controls to the water table. So I forget. Let's say the gradient goes from 20 feet here up to 30 feet here above mean sea level. And the issue that we want is what are the trajectories of flow towards these wells. And so these can give us some give us very good control over here, but going up the Little River, the reason that they're there, Tom, is because they're dry points, and it's a river valley, and the water table is right there, and so they can be really easily put in. If you step up to here, then all of a sudden you've got 30 feet to water. There's no way you're putting it in without a well rig, and the well rig cost. This was the estimate for one well right here. Like $2,600 to put in a well. I mean, that's why typically when I do these water table mapping programs, if they need to be supplemented, these are easy places to go, and the dry point cost is like $600 for the materials.
Perfect. Good. Thank you. Commissioner Robinson.
This is a good explanation that even I can follow. Thank you, Tom. I curious one thing. I think the town owns the Little River property that you're looking at dry points. do we need permission from the Conservation Commission, both as the owner of the property and as a permitting agency to do any of that work?
Well, I think my initial thing is I probably don't. There's a lot of things that are going on in that area there. A lot of people, lots of old abandoned cranberry bogs and different berms and things like that. The water is right there. There's really no impact at all of putting a dry point in. And we're talking about 1.5 inch diameter piece of PVC pipe. So it's totally inert. There's nothing to it. I've seen, other programs where the engineers are involved, and so they'll make a big deal about, putting in a notice of intent or asking for a determination from the Concom. Another thing to do is certainly to talk to Darcy and get some feedback from her and say, hey, what do you think, Darcy?
That's
go
what I
ahead
was going
with
to
it.
suggest, is that they can do things they call administrative reviews that don't have to involve hearings and whatnot, if it's at the discretion of the agent, whether she feels there's going to be any alteration or not. So but I do think we should not bypass the town, permitting agency. They also own that property. So we're doing something on their property, just as if we were doing something on a private landowner's property. We'd want to get
Oh,
permission.
yeah. I was under the impression the district owned down to it. I hadn't looked at any
The
ownership.
town owns that piece.
Yeah, okay.
The district owns north of 28 on the river, but not south. The other thing is, for those who haven't been following along in the months and year that we've been talking about this, could you or Scott just explain the purpose of the water table mapping? Why do we need to do this? What's the point?
Well, the point is to confirm the flow of water towards the wells.
Why?
We did a water table. We did the groundwater modeling
Right.
project.
Why do we want to know that? Why do we want to know that?
Well,
Why do we want to know?
that I want to leave off. I would ask Commissioner Horsley to address.
Sure, I'll jump in here. So this goes back to the idea of possibly upgrading and replacing some of these septic systems on these lots. I can't use my pointer here, but you can see there's a whole bunch of small lots in the MC 35, MC 99, MC 179 area. These are all septic systems that, according to the existing water table mapping, which I believe was done by the U.S. Geological Survey, it suggests that the flow direction is essentially southeasterly from there towards the wells. And if we're going to go and start, and Tom did some great work for us on modeling the individual capture zones for each of these 3 production wells, Station 2, Station 1, Station 4. And what it showed was that there were fairly narrow lines of contribution from the upgrading area to the wells, meaning there were specific lots, according to that mapping and modeling, that contribute to the wells. But as we know, models are not perfect. And the thought would be, before we spend money to upgrade these septics, we really want to know which lots are contributing to the wells. And the idea was that this water table mapping would provide a more definitive picture of that flow system. So I think that's the purpose. And I think the method that Tom's outlining here makes sense. I do have a couple of questions, Mr. Chair, when it's appropriate.
I think it's appropriate.
So I guess, Tom, my question is if I got this right, SS1 on this map is the one additional well proposed other than the drive points along the Little River. I guess that's my first question. Just for clarity, the other wells on the map are existing, is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay, and I guess my second question is, that table you showed, it looked like you took water level measurements of some of the existing wells. We were able to, if that's right, we were able to look at how that, what kind of water contour that might have generated, if in fact that I've got that right. Those are measurements you made on the existing wells that you're showing, is that right?
That's right, yes. So I don't have a,
So-
elevation on the wells,
Ah,
for sure,
we
but
don't.
maybe you could estimate it if that's where you were going.
No, I was hoping that maybe as part of the study on the Citgo plume, that there may be some, that they would have surveyed those wells when they did that study. And I'm recalling there was and Chris, you may know, I thought there was a water table map generated as part of that study showing the flow direction. And I guess what I was getting to is could we, I think what you're proposing makes all kinds of sense, Tom, but I'm wondering, since you've already done this much work, if there were surveyed elevations on the wells from the prior study, could we do an initial look at, what the contours might look like from the measurements we've already made?
Well, that's a good question. I did look at that and I did see kind of a water table map that was kind of looked like kind of a little spaghetti kind of mesh, not mess, but it didn't really look uniform, let's say. And the other thing that I saw was that the consultants had estimated the elevations in a number of these wells also. And then the other thing is that, since these went in, the road and Mariner Circle and all that's been paved and all that. So these wells were kind of tampered with by DPW and cutting them. And the cool thing is that they called Chris up and said, "What are all these wells?" And Chris said, "Well, we might need them." So they put they put new curb boxes on them and all that. And so they were, their elevations were changed as well. So it could be that it could potentially look at their you find their elevations to see what that looks like. But I thought that it would likely not end up any better than what I'd seen in one of their reports, which probably wasn't too helpful.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, one last question, if I may. Tom, you mentioned earlier that there was, I think, the MTBE went from, and maybe you could put that map back up, went from the current Kituitt Arts Center towards well number 2. I believe that's where it was detected, and I'm just wondering, is that something we could consider initially as sort of a tracer study, in that we kind of know the source and we know where it went? Does that suggest a flow direction? I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. And I don't mean to hit you with this cold. I just thought of it when you were talking about it.
Yeah. It certainly would be, you say, okay, back then, if that was the hot spot and whatever time it took for it to go 30 feet down and then start to migrate, it could have ended up in 2. Now, it could have been also kind of smeared around as well. There might have been, one, I'm not sure what the whole pumping scheme was in those, but it definitely could have been changed by pumping that was going on as well. So that's kind of a general indication of it, that it might head this way. I think our modelings was saying it was kind of heading more like this.
Yeah, exactly.
But if that was the hotspot, I'm not sure. I'd have to look again, Chris, if there were like traces of any hits in 1 and 4. I don't recall that.
Well, we do have a graph of that, or a map of that, of what was tested where and how high it got at the highest points. I do know that it reached 72 in Station 4. So it was pretty, I mean, Station 2, I'm sorry. So it did go directly to 2, and we didn't see it anyplace else. I don't believe we got it at any of the other stations. If we did, it was a very minimal amount. We might have got more of a hit even over at Station 5 than that from a previous spill from another gas station.
Oh, yeah.
But I have to go back and look. We used to have graphs out there, and I think if I say we, but I mean Jen, looked back into the old graphs, we might find the old page that we used to bring every month with us back to the different meetings.
Oh, I have that.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well,
I
Mr.
think
Chair,
Um,
those are all my only questions. I do think we should move forward with the next phase, and I do like the idea of this well at SS1. I think Tom outlined the fact that it could provide double purpose here. I think it looks like we do need some control over to that western side. This would provide that from the water table mapping, and as you recall, in a prior meeting, we did have a discussion about that as not as a likely contamination source, but as certainly a potential. And that well location would, I think, as Tom explained very well, would really provide both benefits. So I like what's being proposed here, and I think we should authorize Tom to take the next step in the work.
Commissioner Robinson? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to move forward with the study, and I think it's very well thought out.
Tom, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I may, one more. I said that was my last question. Tom, to you, Tom Cambereri, I know getting a driller out there, mobilization is part of the cost. We're only proposing one well drilled here. Would it be worth considering a second? And while we get them out there for cost effectiveness purposes and give us even a little bit better control. I don't know what.
That's a good point. I did think that was be the case. I think his mob cost was 300. He's charging a half a day, so instead of $2,400, he's charging 1,200. So the relative cost would be like another 1,200 plus materials and all that. So it wouldn't go up twice, maybe just a third of the cost to get another well in. If we were thinking of it, if we wanted to go at this area here,
Where are you pointing? I can't see that.
well, potentially over this way, but that's, you got to think
On the
about
west end?
access. This is great access here. It could go right in the right of way. There was that whole other issue is that, looking at the Little River and groundwater fluctuations, that a pressure transducer could be put in a new well down here. None of these would have the width or the security of it, and putting something down in. But any of these other green wells could potentially be used for that as well. But you don't really have anything right near the river here. So, and that would probably be a cheapo because it would only be like 10, 15 feet to water. probably less than 10, probably less than 2 feet to water, actually. But you'd want to go in like 10 feet or something just to make sure you've got it and it's secured. So that would be redundant with the objective of a water table map because we've got the dry points, but it might serve another purpose. If I was going to put in another well for water table, I don't know, it might, kind of gets redundant with those, maybe off this way. I'm not sure what this access is over here, if there's any buildings. Looking at that, you have to start looking at the aerials to see what's there. So it's basically access and and lines overhead. But if you could potentially pop one in here, but potentially pop in another down in this area.
Yeah, it seems like on that west side, it would be nice to have something in that zone, and I think that's water department land. It comes out close to Newtown Road there.
It is, it comes right out to Newtown Road. It runs
Right.
the in a circle, and there is a lot there. Actually, it's the new fire chief's lot.
Yeah.
And there's a old access road goes in up and behind, but there is a barrier that goes across that.
Yeah.
So it's
Steel gate,
possibly
yeah.
set up right around that access road.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the budget for that, but that seems like it would give us some more reliability in our data for the water table mapping project.
I believe we had $20,000 allotted for this. We've spent 6 on the first phase. This phase right now is at, I believe it's just under 12.2. So we'd have to think about that. That's the only thing.
Yeah, we might want to explore that, right? I think it's a good idea.
Okay,
The
Mr.
other
Chairman,
thing
I
is
would-
on SS1, the new proposed well, we have to get landowner permission for that as well.
I think there's
that
a-
may be on
A
town
right
road.
of way. I think there's a right of way there.
Is it a
Oh, wow.
private road or a public road?
I think Mariner's it's a public road, but, you know,
I
it's
could let you
hard.
know tomorrow on that. I don't have the information here, but I could let you know tomorrow morning on that.
Yeah, you want to check into that. I know when I talked to the landlord or the landowner that's adjacent to that, because I don't think that's the Lugene piece. I think that's the old landscape piece. And that's now that was subdivided and sold. So there's a new owner there. But if it's on the right of way, that's
You know, a lot of these are in the right of way, or they, yeah, right on the side of the road.
But I like the idea of making sure we contact Darcy over at Conservation before we move forward with any of the work, putting in the dry points, and then exploring that additional well on the west side, and just making sure that we've got our ducks in a row in terms of drilling it, putting any wells in on somebody else's land.
We'll check into it, definitely.
But I think we have consensus among the commissioners that we want to move forward with the proposal. I think you've done an outstanding job once again, Tom. Thank you. Do we need a motion on this?
Yeah, I think we should. We're spending money.
Yeah.
I move that we accept the proposal with the suggestions, recommendations discussed here tonight.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Motion was made, seconded, and voted on to move forward with phase 2 of the groundwater mapping project. Does that cover it, Jen?
It does. Thank you.
Tom, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And I'll get back in touch with you, Chris,
Thank you.
moving forward.
We'll talk to you later. Thank you. Good.
Excellent. Hey, Tom, one other thing, I'm sorry. You mentioned that it might be good to get the department a groundwater, a depth of groundwater meter.
Yeah, tape, water level tape. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
$500.
I've got one.
Yeah,
I've got one. I'll drop it off when I come sign the minutes. You guys can have it.
Sounds good.
Compliments.
I was looking at pricing one, and Tom was going to send me the size and description that he was looking at.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
Yep.
We do have small diameter wells out there. Those things, those MC wells are really small. So hopefully it'll be the right size. Tom.
I think the probe is about 2.5 centimeters, maybe 2 centimeters.
2 centimeters would be.
Yeah, it might work.
Yeah.
Is that an
Inch-
electric tape you
much.
have, Tom?
Yeah,
Little buzzer, yeah.
yep.
Cool. we'll take a
So
look
if
at
it works, I'll bring it by. You guys decide if it works. You
Thank
can
you,
have-
Tom.
I'm not using it anymore, it turns out.
Very nice, Mr. Chairman. I thought you were going to leave it in your will.
I'll leave it to you, Mark.
it.
All right,
Great.
thank you.
Bye now.
Hey, Tom.
Okay, let's see where we're at here. All right, next on our agenda, I think that covers both the source water protection business as well as the test and monitoring wells. And next up would be the affordable access to drinking water, the rate evaluation, Lee Heap info from Commissioner Robinson.
So we discussed this in November. I don't have anything new to suggest. I mean, I think it kind of speaks for itself. Those who aren't familiar, it's a policy that is a proposal right now to basically waive the per gallon fee for the first 20,000 gallons per year per service, and to offset the $180,000 in lost revenue by increasing the top two tiers of the rate system. And if you feel that's necessary. We did talk about the fact that right now we're creating an excess of revenue for the district after covering our budget. And I just think that people have a right to clean water, and some minimum amount of supply should be available for free for people. Recognizing that probably half the water that we pump is for irrigation. I don't think it's appropriate to adopt this without having some kind of a hearing that's announced and advertised. And so I would propose that perhaps we could post this in the different places where we post things and invite people to come to the next meeting with comments, and then perhaps have a vote on it in the March meeting. But I do think if we are going to do it, it should be available for the next fiscal year so that it can be worked into the budget for the district. And I'm happy to share this with the Prudential Committee and get their thoughts. And I'll be happy to attend a meeting of them if they would like me to, if you'd like me to.
I think I concur that, we need to get this proposal out to the public for their consideration. I have talked to some folks about it, and I've got mixed reviews, I gotta tell you. And the concern is that once you open that box and start giving stuff away, it's hard to get money back, particularly at a time where we might be looking for quite a bit of additional funds for water treatment, septic systems, innovative and alternative septic systems that we're going to want to work with people to upgrade. And the more I thought of it, the more I thought, well, I don't know if we want to be giving water away when we're going to be needing additional money. Perhaps we could set up a stabilization fund where monies from that first 20,000 gallons went and then were available for applicants to access that would have problems spending $30,000 or so on an innovative and alternative septic system. I just don't know if we want to just give it back to the district members. I'm having conversations with people about it and thinking about it and kind of
So I guess,
in that direction.
Mr. Chair, I would respond that we talked about the fact that this would be revenue neutral. So we're not losing money. We're simply shifting it. We're shifting it onto the big users. And so
Right.
I like the idea of putting more money into the stabilization fund. Absolutely. It's ridiculous what little amount we're putting in each year. But I would say that it should be skimmed off the top of the higher rates, maybe $150,000 a year from those top two tiers should go into the stabilization fund, so that we could still provide the first 20,000 would be free to every single person who lives in Katuitt. I think that
Run
that's,
a risk. I think you're running a risk there that those top tiers are still going to use that much water once the rates continue to increase.
okay.
And,
So
and
as we
revenues will
talk,
go
yeah,
down,
but
and then
as-
we're not going to have enough revenue to upgrade septic systems and help people deal with issues of contamination, particularly when we're looking at not only upgrading systems to protect our pumping stations, but also to deal with lawsuits that are rightfully being pursued in order to clean up our bays and estuaries.
yeah. Well, I want to be able to do both, and I think that we can without losing revenue. We're just shifting revenue, and I don't think that it's fair for the, people should have a right to water, and I think that they are already paying for it in their annual assessment, which is a small amount of money, but this is a small amount of money that we're talking about losing from each household. We're not losing it to the district. We're giving people the first bit of water for free. And if they want to use a lot more, they're going to pay a lot more. And I think that, as we've talked about earlier today, if we find that it's causing a damper on people using the extra water because they don't want to pay the higher rates, then we have the power as the water commissioners to set the rates at any given point in time that we feel the need to. I understand the concern of going back and taxing something that's been considered free, but circumstances change in all sorts of parts of life, and if we find that there's not enough revenue to do the things we want to do, then we'll capture that revenue. But I do think that as a matter of policy, it would be a very powerful thing for people to know that, what we're doing here is giving people access to water. And, anybody can go out and drill a well on their property right now and have access to water, but that's not practical for most people. They're bound to use the public water supply. And this is not something that's unique to Cotuit. This is something that's going on throughout the United States. I cited some of these studies that are being used to, particularly in the big cities where there's a lot of, poor people living in the urban centers that can't pay their water bills. And so they're shifting the cost to the higher users, bigger users of water, and providing people with a chance to not have that particular bill being a real burden for them. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of people in Cotuit that couldn't afford that first 20,000 gallons, but I think it's a matter of principle that we should take some lead on.
So it looks like we've done some work on this document here with our total accounts, 2,287. It's $80 per year is for the first 20,000 gallons. Is that what we get from that, Jeff? So we'd be looking to raise an additional 182,960 from the higher users.
Right.
And I think the first step would be to bring it to the Prudential Committee to see what their thoughts on it. And then,
Tom, I'm sorry, could you explain where the 182 comes from here? I'm not seeing that.
That's up here. Right now, we have 2,287 accounts. They get the first
Oh, okay.
10,000 gallons in each 6-month billing period at $40 for the 10,000 gallons. That's our minimum use bill.
Okay, I'm sorry, I see it.
Waive the minimum use in both billing periods.
so that'd be $80 per year.
Yeah, so I'll just, I'll give you my thoughts on this. First of all, I like the idea a lot. I think it sends a really powerful message, and I'm inclined to go with it. But I think the chair's comments are also valid here, that As I said earlier, I'm in favor of raising the higher tiers regardless, because I don't think we've gone far enough to try to encourage conservation. So I'm in favor of that either way. But the unknown question, as I think the chair identified, is if we do that, what is the point of elasticity where some people, some of the large users go offline and we lose that revenue? And I don't know the answer to that question. So I would like to try to do this. I'm just not sure how to get there, whether we do it in one step or two steps. I mean, one possibility would be step number one is to increase the higher tiers and see what that reaction is. As Commissioner Robinson already said, we're currently in a net positive situation here. We're generating more revenue. So what we've already done suggests that, that hasn't caused a problem. So I'm frankly, I'm on the fence here. I could really go either way. Like, let's just do this as Commissioner Robinson is proposing, although I do think we need to have a public hearing. So maybe my thought is, let's go ahead and do the public hearing. Let's get some more input on this. I think it's an interesting idea. It's different. It's I think it really gets to some critical social issues. I agree with the concept that people deserve clean water, but they don't deserve clean water to put on lawns for free or cheap. And I think we're grossly undercharging that second use. So I guess my suggestion, Mr. Chair, is to go ahead and have a public hearing and have a discussion on it. I think it's an interesting proposal that warrants further thought, input, and discussion. And I think frankly, I think some good will come out of the conversation regardless.
Yeah, two comments. First, I'm sorry, this is my first meeting, but are there any other communities on Cape Cod that have done anything like this, or will we be the first?
Not that I know of. I don't think that's a reason not to do things, because I think that the Cotuit Water Commission has some of the most thoughtful people in any commission that I've seen on the Cape. So,
And I was just going to respond to that, Mark, by saying I hope we would be the first. I hope we are. I hope we're not second.
but I do have some citations in this report of studies that are being done, all sorts of different venues throughout the United States. So.
I was just curious whether we're precedent setting or not, because as always, we can point to that as a direction. I don't mind being first. The second thing is I like the idea that was put forth by Scott and doing it in a two-phase approach, only because I don't know what the elasticity is at the higher end. And once that revenue is lost, and it may not change at all, but I'm curious, that's the big unknown from my perspective. And certainly do agree with the chairman's recommendation of having a public hearing. So that's my 2 cents worth, but it's an unknown. I've always found it helpful to understand the impact before the action is taken. And that's just my initial reaction to it. Find out if the people at the higher end don't mind and there's no movement, then it makes it much easier to offset that revenue, $182,000. Conversely, if it does impact it, which is probably not going to be the case, then at the very least, you know what you can point to and say, all right, we lost whatever, or we still continue to maintain the same. So,
Couple of points. It was my suggestion to have the public hearing. I don't think we do anything in this commission without having public hearings when it's affecting the finances of the district. Secondly, by shifting some of the costs of this policy onto the higher users, those higher users are still going to benefit from the $80 a year that they're going to be saving on the bottom tier of the water. So This is something that's going to give everybody a little subsidy. And some people will pay more because they're using more water for non-domestic uses. And I think that there's equity all the way around in that analysis. What is the impact going to be? We won't know. I think we talked about earlier tonight the fact that if you look at the 5-year period, 2018 to 2022, we can't see a discernible difference in the amount of water that's being pumped. There may be some variation between last year and this year, but that's not a historical trend. So we raised the rates significantly for the first time since 1995, 2 years ago. And we haven't seen that it's had an impact. Jen is getting calls, but we don't have people rioting in the streets about their water bill. So I think that, this is something that I feel very strongly about as a matter of principle. I just delivered my $20 check to the district for my little piddling amount of water use. I can pay it, but I know that some people, it's another bill that if they can save somewhere, it would be useful to them. And I also think that we need to have the graph showing how much revenue this department is generating right now for the district. And we've been hopeful that that would bring down or at least stabilize the tax rate on the district. So I don't think we should be paying for everything through the water rates. And if we can provide a little bit of equity to some people, to all people, while subsidizing it through the higher use, I think that's what's fair. So I would like to suggest, Mr. Chair, that let me clean this up a little bit with Jen, and then we'll post it and encourage people to get the word out through our Facebook and the Civic Association and other ways that we do that website, and ask for comments and try to have a broader discussion with more people next month if we have time.
I like that idea, but I do think that we need to get on the Prudential Committee's agenda as well.
Yeah. Do you want to do that before or after the public hearing, Tom?
I would think that it would be prudent for us to do it before.
Okay.
They may have little concern, or they may have significant concern.
Yeah.
And I
Where
don't
do
want to leverage their position by getting it out to the public and making it something that we're going to take action on without them having an opportunity to weigh in.
When do they meet?
The 4th Monday of the month.
So is it too soon to get on their agenda for this month?
So that would be the 23rd.
Yeah.
And I would
Next-
imagine, it could just be in considered as part of public comment. It doesn't, I don't know that you have to. You want to let them know early, but if they've already posted their agenda and they say, oh, well, it's too late, then we say, all right, we're going to bring it to you in your public comment section.
Okay, let me clean this up tomorrow, and then who's the chair? Is it Fran still? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get this to her and ask her how and when she can deal with it.
Yeah, and specifically ask her if we can present it to them the 23rd, because we want to have a public hearing on it. It's something we've been working on for a couple of months now, and we want to move forward with it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm also wondering if we want to, especially where we have Mark here, whether the Civic Association might be a good venue here. Maybe not for the first stop, but certainly maybe a second stop, because those tend to be pretty well attended.
Yeah.
Happy to support you, just based on the timing in your direction.
Great. Brett, did you have a question about this? I saw something pop up on the chat.
Oh, it's already been answered, but thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You should know, Brett, that we have the irrigation policy that There are no new irrigation wells being allowed in Katuitt. We're encouraging people to install private wells for irrigation. So that's a policy that's been adopted. It's on our website.
I remember when you suggested separate metering for irrigation, there was
Yeah, that didn't work.
very loud objections from one particular person.
I think it still is allowed for conservation purposes. If they're concerned about a drop in the water table due to them having to put in a private well, they can apply for a second meter for irrigation. It's not necessarily going to happen. We're not necessarily going to approve it, but if it's because they're concerned about surface water levels or even groundwater levels where they are, particularly with saltwater intrusion and possible problems similar to that, then we consider a separate well. So we're flexible.
Can I ask
We're
another
with
question?
folks. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just for food for thought. I have no stance on the matter. I was just wondering if you'd given any thoughts to the sort of optics or of people who are not residents ending up with quote unquote free water, and how that might rub some people in the district the wrong way, or if you think that's a nothing burger.
Well, again, everybody would be benefiting equally. So that's a flat charge. It's the higher tiers that are completely variable depending on how much extra water they want to use. And the other thing is that we still have what we call the never can remember the name of it. The annual What's the annual charge called, Jen?
The consumption assessment.
Yeah, so everybody pays that regardless. It's just to have a service, you pay an annual fee. So everybody pays that. And then when you turn on the tap, then you start paying for water too.
Just I'm sorry, just a reminder out there. This last billing that we did came in quite high. And we're supposed to turn everything we make back into the water department. We're not supposed to make a profit for the district. We're supposed to put it back into the water department. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that's mass law. So we got to be careful about how much we raise rates and how much money we make, or we're going to have to try to direct the treasurer to make sure he tries to pay off notes of the water department.
Right.
It's just out there. We got to be just something to put in the background and everything else to think about.
And that is a state law, and you're right, and that's why I go back to a separate stabilization fund to help us deal with. We're going to have people that are going to need help upgrading septic systems.
Okay. Yep.
That was my question. Does the stabilization fund reside within the department then, or is it at the district level?
How it's written.
We have one that resides with the department, and then
Okay.
there's a district one as well. The one with the department, as well as the district, I believe, if you want to spend money out of it, you have to get district level approval. So you have to have a special district meeting,
Right.
ask for the money during a regularly scheduled district meeting.
And right now, that's the $10 per meter fee billed twice a year. So just over $45,000 a year go into that water department stabilization fund account.
It should be at least 100,000 every year.
Yeah, I
Take
was
all
gonna
that
say,
money
we're
from the lower tiers, put it right in there.
We're gonna need money for either treatment at the wellhead or treatment in the watershed. Either way, we're gonna need money. I think we'll spend less if we do it in the watershed, in my own opinion, but either way, we're gonna need some money.
Well, and I think it's going to be more effective if we do it in the watershed as well, because you don't know what's going to pop up in terms of emerging chemicals concern, Okay.
So we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about having too much money coming into the department and afraid of losing money. So which is it?
So you could shift that $40 minimum use in each 6 months, plus the current $10 meter fee, so $50 twice a year, $100 per account. You could shift that from calling it a minimum use, give away the first 10 or 20,000, call that your stabilization. That's $100 per account every year into the stabilization account.
And my recollection is we did put some money in the, was it the 5-year plan to start spending some money on these septic system upgrades? So
Right.
we're gonna have to pay for that
Yep.
somehow.
Yep, and I think we're gonna want to see a lot more systems converted. Just some thoughts. Okay, we need to move forward. We have some new business with respect to the upcoming budget as well as the superintendent's annual review, as evaluation. Any other questions on the old business? Okay, so we're gonna do superintendent's evaluation. We just need to prepare for that, and Jen included copies of the evaluation form and I believe Chris's evaluation last year. Chris, my
Yes, sir.
suggestion, and I'd love to hear from the other commissioners on this, would be that you take each of the points of interest. For example, infrastructure management, safeguarding, no deficiency in water supply or quality are recorded. Could be something simple as water supplies and quality were not, there was no deficiencies recorded. We had no issues, other than the fact that we were in droughts and had to have some mandated restrictions in concert with the state regulations. So for each of those points, you just provide an exemplar for us. And then at the next meeting, we can go through it and give you your ratings on the 4 overall points of interest, overall, titles: the infrastructure management, safeguarding, the compliance, the personnel management, communication.
Basically, you want an answer for every question.
I want an answer for every question.
Okay.
I'd like an
that-
exemplar from you
Okay.
for each
I'll
one.
get
It
that.
doesn't have to be a lot,
Yep, no, I'll get
right?
that
Some
to
of them
you.
might be pretty self-explanatory.
Sure.
I don't know, would that work for the other commissioners? Or is that overcomplicating something? Is that okay with you, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
I think you
Fine.
did it for us last year.
I believe I did, yeah.
You did a fine job, I would say. Okay, so that's that. Any other points? Does anybody want to bring anything else up on Chris's eval?
You want me to tell you a little bit about myself, my likes, my dislikes?
You want to do that at the next meeting? You want to do that now?
That's good, yeah. All right, thanks.
Okay, and then the next thing is we got to start the FY24 budget process. And I
Yeah.
would imagine that's Jen. How we looking there?
We're looking good. Ignore the salary section for now. I'm just gonna roll that up because that will all be dependent on your discussions next week and Chris's evaluations that he does on all the staff. I did a little bit of preliminary stuff based on the cost of living recommendations that are out there from the federal government right now, and Lord only knows what's going to happen with those rates. So jumping into, I'm not intending to get into a lot of detail here. My biggest concern is making sure that you've reviewed the 5-year cap plan, adjust anything that you want in there, anything that we need to consider for special appropriations. Chris and I have gone through the maintenance and operating piece quite a bit. I've gone into some pretty extensive details outlining, all of our dues and memberships, everything that we use for building and supply, all of our computer stuff. So I have a good amount of backup for all of the stuff that is in the operating and maintenance budget. Anything that's bold, we recommended increases to. And as you can imagine, the cost of everything has increased tremendously this year. So these are our initial projections. I will send this to you so that you have it, to play around with on your own. Look at the numbers that we've drilled into should you desire, but right now we're looking at a pretty hefty increase. I'm going to stop sharing that and bring up the 5-year cap plan, because really this is the one that's going to need your attention. This is, obviously fiscal 23 has come and gone. 24, we've only put in some money for some well cleaning and rehab and innovative septic solutions. So we'll need to discuss and decide what recommendations we will need to make at the Prudential Committee meeting. And I think that's due in March. So we'll need to have these discussions at the February meeting, and I wanted to get them on your radar.
Hey, Chairman, if I may jump in here. I'm just looking at these septic numbers, and I can't remember how we derived these. The going rate to replace these systems is around $35,000 per home. So the 100 really is 2 homes. And I'm just wondering, I think it would be, since we're looking ahead here, I would suggest that these numbers get bumped up a little bit. Now, as I recall, there was something like 30 or 40 systems within the Zone 2 areas that Tom had identified. And my recollection is we're going to try to go at this, on a phased basis. So if we try to address 20 or 30 systems over the next, let's say, 5 years, that would be just 5 or so per year. So I think the number per year is probably more like, $200,000, given some cost increases and what we need to do. So I think that would be more, my thought would be that would be more realistic to up these numbers a little bit. If in fact there's going to be support for going this direction, I don't want to undershoot.
Why would it only be 5 years, Scott? Why wouldn't we be able to do this over a longer period?
Could do it over a longer period, but yeah, I mean, that's possible.
And I also think, FY24 is 15 months away. I mean, it's, 18
Yeah,
months away.
although we've been talking about this for a year, almost more than a year now, and we got Tom doing the water table mapping. I think if his numbers bear out, I think we can start talk about approaching homeowners this year, 2023, and start lining up to do some upgrades in 24. So I think this timing is not bad. And I don't know how long we should plan this over. I think we should be aggressive on this if we're going to go this direction. So I do think these numbers are a little low.
Yeah, I
What
would
about-
agree.
What about 3 the first year? What would that be? That would be 120 or something.
Yeah, maybe 100.
3 and then ramping it up to 5 and then 6, 7, 8,
Yeah, that would be a little better. I mean, costs have gone up 20, 30% in the last couple of years in this industry. I know that from other projects I'm working on. That's probably consistent with a lot of construction costs. So yeah, I would up them at least, say 120 if you want to negotiate a little bit there, and then maybe go up to, I don't know, up at 20 per year. How's that? 120, 140, 160.
Yeah.
Why
Just a
20?
quick-
If a septic system costs 30 grand to upgrade, why not bump them up 30 grand each year? So you grab another system each year.
That's a good thing. And yeah, that's probably a good thought, Tom. So maybe it's 120 and then 150 and so on. I like that better.
Just a question, are we talking full full payment? Are we talking to subsidize here? Like, say you pay for so much and we'll pay the excess? I can't remember how it was discussed in the beginning. I thought it was,
Yeah, I
Something
don't
to
know that I don't know we decided on that, Chris, but one thing for sure that wouldn't be in here, and I think it's appropriate, is the landscaping. We're not gonna
Yep.
pay. So I think that, which can be significant, as you know.
correct.
So the 30 to 35 really covers the system itself. And yeah, if we go to subsidy, maybe we get more systems done. But I think at this point, it's hard to get people to do this voluntarily. And frankly, I don't see the town. I've been talking with the town quite a bit about regulations, or other towns like Wellfleet that are considering adopting regulations to require this. I
Yep.
don't see Barnstable doing that in the near term, so I think we're on our own here a little bit. We feel this is a valid protection of our water supply, and I think once people really start thinking about the fact that we have all these septic systems directly uphill from our drinking water supply, I think people are gonna get interested. So I think it's a valid program and cost for us to take on ourselves. And, you can't really blame, I guess my view of this is you can't really blame the individual homeowner who happens to be in the zone 2 contributing area. They didn't know that when they bought the house, not their fault. But I think we want their cooperation in upgrading that system. So my own feeling is we should think about paying most of the full freight on this, maybe with the exception of the landscaping cost.
What about the fact that the last time we talked about this, we didn't know that DEP was going to be imposing these upgrades? At
There we
least
go.
that's the draft regulation. So if that's the case, it's not encouraging people. People will be beside themselves how to pay for it, and our money will be looking pretty good as a subsidy.
Well, a short version on that is the two parts of those proposed regs. Part one is everybody upgrades within 5 years, and part two is, or you get a watershed permit. My strong view is there will be none of the former. I think any town that's gonna be, has a TMDL or impaired watershed is gonna opt for, and the requirement is not to get the watershed permit, simply to apply for one. And that's going to exempt this 5-year upgrade. I think this is frankly a bit of a scare tactic. I really don't think that's going to happen. And in our case, we already have a comprehensive watershed plan in Barnstable that technically does cover this area in a later phase. So I don't think my feeling is you're not going to see, if these regulations pass, which is another if, I don't think you're going to see this 5-year upgrade take place requirement. I don't think it's going to happen. I think this, and again, this is a different objective here. This is drinking water supply as opposed to the estuary. The town has other plans to fix the Three Bays estuary, which is primarily sewering along Route 28 and other things of that nature. I think what we're looking at here is systems in our wellhead area.
Good response.
Excellent, good. But regardless, I think we should up those. And if you end up going with a subsidized process where people apply for funds out of a stabilization fund that's just set up for alternative and innovative septic systems, I don't know how that's going to shake out, but it's something that we need to start thinking about. I want to go down to the infrastructure as well. Chris, water main replacements, electrical upgrades, we've got proposed for 2 pump stations this year. I don't know about, that's getting spent, that FY23. FY24, 25, we want to beef that up there as well. And then the well cleaning and rehab and tanks, right? So I'm sure you've given those some thought, and we're going to need to give them some more.
Right. And right now, that well cleaning, I don't have a station that has come up to say to be rehabbed according to our inspectors.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can shift that around a little bit. That was a thought that we would more than likely have to do it. What I might do is shift that 50 over to 2025 for 100 and say 2 stations. The electrical upgrades, I've run into a bit of a hiccup on that. I don't know if it was a miscommunication or if I'm getting, I don't want to say scammed, but the contractor, the engineering firm I talked to said the 65,000 would be going to write specs for that, to do the upgrades. And I said, no, I asked you to give me a price to have it done, and this is what you came up with. So we had a disagreement there, and what I plan on doing with that money right now is installing all those VFDs on the station to bring down electrical costs. And at the time, the guy that comes in is going to do some, get rid of some unneeded equipment in there and moving stuff around. So I've actually getting some of the stuff done now for $10,000, $12,000 rather than 65. So we might actually save some money there. I'll get a better price and know better once they get in there and start looking at everything.
Chris, I
And I
think you
talked to-
said that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think you said that you were cleaning the tanks every 3 to 5 years. Is this showing that you're going to do one well a year, every year for 5 years?
Correct. That's, I hate to clean it well if it doesn't have to be done. But they will, if they start to go down in production, that's when they say, okay, it's time to get it cleaned. And that's when we go in and clean it. A lot of times, I didn't get that from them this year. When they went in there expected, they said everything's working okay. There was no suggestions to do a cleaning on any well. So I hate to take $50,000 and just not use it right now, where if I knock it over to 100 or so, I could leave it there and say, you know what, I know it's going to happen within the next 2 years and I can get 2 done at the same time, maybe. So if I had it, I might not use it for 2024, but I'd hate to put that onto the tax bracket. But I don't believe Ray would borrow the money until I needed it. That's something I'd have to check with him on. In the past, they've never borrowed the money unless I tell them it's going to be happening. Then they go out and get the funds. So that's when it usually happens. I don't know if that affects the tax bracket or not. I'll have to talk to him about it.
I'm guessing short cash like that, he would take from free cash rather than finance.
I would think so, yes.
Especially with what we're bringing in.
Right. And right now for infrastructure, the only roads that are being resurfaced in Barnstable right now will not be affected. We've already done the work that we wanted to do as Newtown Road. We did that about 10 years ago. We have asked for a 5-year plan from the town of Barnstable on what's going to be repaved. So if we wanted to do some main replacement or sideline replacement, we could, but it's very hard for them to come up with something like that with all the Cape Wind and septic stuff that's going on. He doesn't want to commit to anything over there.
Okay, Commissioner Horsley, any question?
I was just going to suggest back to the innovative septic solutions. If we could, Jen, if we could just call, people are going to see this budget. That's a big number. If we could call that septic system upgrades in wellhead protection area, that might help people understand what we're doing here. Septic system upgrades and wellhead protection area. I don't know. These are just words, but people are going to see this budget and at least might help start to explain. We're not innovative septic makes it sound like I'm realizing we're experimenting with some new technologies. So that's my suggestion. And again, just a reminder, we should change those numbers. That's the big number on this budget. So I just think that's important to get that right.
For some reason, I'm not able to edit it, so I.
That's
will-
okay, later, and I'll try to remember to talk with you. And I think the message here is we're trying to avoid that $10 million to $20 million cost, right?
Public treatment center.
Yeah.
Scott, can I ask you a question I got today on that subject?
Sure.
So somebody asked me with the whole sewer system that's going in with the town, if somebody were to upgrade to one of these innovative septic solutions, would they have to abandon that and be required to go onto the sewer program?
The town is discussing that, and my understanding is they would be given exemption to those people, so they would not have to connect. And I did talk with Rob Steen at DPW before we started this, you may recall, and they looked at this neighborhood. And my recollection is the pump station alone, not the sewers, which is the expensive part, but the cheaper part, the pump station for this neighborhood was $7 million. The sewers might be another, I'll guess, 10 to 20 million. So if you wanted to not do the septic systems and go with the quote conventional system, we're probably talking 20, 30, 40 million dollars instead of $7 million. So you decide where you want, which direction you want to go here. He encouraged us to do this because of the cost. So that's a longer answer than you wanted, but I think the town, if we go this direction, I think the town will be supportive that they won't sewer this area. In other words, if we do this, that would be the replacement, the cheaper replacement than building the sewer.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other
Yeah, just
infrastructure?
those
Concerns?
results from the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition coming out of the Schuylkill Pond study, showing that the test results from these innovative systems, pretty powerful, and I think should be appended to any presentation, Scott, that we're doing on this.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're getting lower numbers than the Hyannis treatment plant. Good thought.
Anything else on infrastructure, Chris?
Not right now.
Tanks?
Nope. I think we're good right now.
How about the exterior of the tanks?
They're filthy.
Put something in the budget for next year on that?
Captain Obvious.
I'm willing to sit out and listen to everybody who's out on Sampson's Island, look at it and said, I drove by it and it looks horrible. What are you gonna do about it?
Wet and forget, right?
Yeah.
Well, again, after spending $16,000 for something that lasted 6 months, I'm not going to vote for any more cleaning of the outside of the tank.
Yeah,
And-
you're gonna
and-
clean it, let's paint it, right? Let's paint it with a better paint.
Yeah, and the painting job costs $1 million. We're not going to do that anytime soon either.
Well, you're
And
gonna have
it's
to do something.
just an inhibitor. If you put an inhibitor on there, it's not helping right now. Last time they put an inhibitor, it hasn't helped. And until they come up with something that's going to keep the mildew off, we can't do anything because the environment has such a dirty air right now. I mean, we have dirty air. It's not clean out there, really. You know, some of it too. I mean, as quick as it happened, we weren't using that much water the last summer that it should have been going up and down that fast for it to be that cold. And I don't know. You could see that black soot a couple of years ago all over everything. You got up in the morning, it just seemed to be everywhere, and it seemed to be the same stuff that jumped right onto that right after we had it cleaned.
I drive a white car. I can vouch for that.
What if we get an innovative artist to come up with a new painting scheme where the mold will blend right in? You know, that big oil tank going into Boston?
We could draw strings in the back, and it could be everybody's mask. It could be a black mask.
No.
I like that.
Oh.
All right, well, keep that in mind.
I'm gonna stay with Commissioner Robinson. I'm not gonna vote for it again either. So good
For
luck,
cleaning?
Tom.
And the highest cost is to get the man lift out there for 2 or 3 days and use that. That's like close to $8,000 right there, just to get the man lift out there. To rent one. I mean,
How about a
I
drone?
could look
A
into
drone
buying
with a
one, maybe.
scrub brush.
How about some of your ex-high school students, Tom? Get them out there to do a community service project.
Yeah, they can hang from climbing ropes.
There you go. Repellent challenge.
Yeah.
Was our
I don't know
liability?
why JR and Matt don't go for that, you know? John,
No.
one of them must like to climb. All right, so we'll look at this and next meeting. This is what we're gonna spend our time on, right? I mean, we've got the proposal for the first 20,000 gallons and reducing the cost of that as that's ongoing. And then also budget. We got to come up with a budget and be prepared to present it to Prudential in March.
Gotcha.
And then we've got Chris's eval.
Has anybody looked at cost of living right now?
I have not.
Any investigation on? Okay.
No, have not. I'll take a look though and see what I can dig up.
All right. Thank you.
I mean, it's over 7 still, so.
Yeah, it's insane.
Chris, we're gonna give you a break on your water bill.
He's in calm.
Maybe the next town over, sorry.
Okay, so matters not anticipated by the chair, additional public comment, set next meeting.
I have
Jen
two
has a- Jen
things
has a
that are
hand.
off the agenda.
Okay, let's hear it.
One is a quick reminder for you, Tom, that the annual letter will be due for the clerk. So I will send you last year's, so you have a template if you'd like.
Please.
Okay. And then just was going to give you a quick update on the billing software. So Mark, don't contact me tomorrow about the rate policy. I've got a meeting at 10 o'clock. In between all the phone calls, I've got a meeting at 10 o'clock with NCR, who's going to be the online payment processor for the district, and a training with Ray and Lisa. And then at 1:30, we finally got our hands on the MuniLink database with our test data in it. And I've got a call to review that with my conversion specialist tomorrow afternoon. It's slick. It looks great. I love it so far. We are probably not going to hit the target go live date of January 27th because it took a while to get data in the right format from our current provider. So we literally last week just got our first view of the database, and with the bills, I haven't had any time to test this week. So it will probably push out to the middle of February, but it will, knock on wood, be in place before the next minimum use bill run.
Great.
Can I just add something to that? If any one of the commissioners tomorrow wants to come in and answer the phone while Jen's doing all this, it's been running off the hook since everybody's got their bills, and we're looking for volunteers to answer questions.
I had a class this morning, Mark, when you came, and by the time the first break came at 9:30, I had 14 voicemails. So it was
Timing is everything in life.
right.
So I guess I better open my water bill.
I'll pay your bill if you'd like.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen, I guess I would just say, thanks for fielding those calls, and it might be valuable if you can, to kind of keep track a little bit of some of the comments and input so that we can hear that in a summarized form, because we do want to hear what people are, what they're concerns about. And I think that would be useful. So this is one form of feedback, right? The phone ringing.
Right.
Probably the most important one. So please, whatever you can do, I know you're already doing a lot, but whatever you can do to summarize comments for us would be really helpful.
Yeah, I will. So far today, it's been mostly just explaining, yes, there was a rate increase. This is how it impacted your usage over 60,000 gallons. Some has been, identifying possible leaks, and I turned my system down. I couldn't possibly have used that much water, and we find a reason for it. Oh, right. I had XYZ.
Yeah.
So far, so good, but they're coming.
Just remember, you always hear from the angry minority, not the silent majority.
And I have to say, everybody has been, I haven't had anybody firing complaints or angry or whatever. Everybody's been pleasant.
But that's why the door was locked this morning.
Don't come in.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we sign off here, I want to thank Brett and Mark for attending. It's really nice to have some people here. And we appreciate your attention and engagement. Thank you.
Yes.
I'll second that. All right, what do we got for next meeting, gentlemen, ladies? Are we looking at the 15th of February? Would be the third Wednesday.
Correct.
Tell me again, the 15th? Yeah, I'll be away until the 14th, but yeah, I'll be back the 15th.
You can show us your suntan.
Are you going south? West?
To Eleuthera,
Eleuthera.
I don't even know where that is.
Bahamas, the windward side of the Bahamas.
So Zoom meeting at 5:45 on
Fill
the
your
15th.
sails. Yes, Zoom 5:45 on the 15th.
February 15th.
I
Thank you,
will
guys.
have some leak adjustments for you at that meeting too, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two that I know of.
Good progress, gentlemen.
Yes,
you very-
thank you,
appreciate it, guys.
everybody. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, so we're set for the 15th of February. We have a motion to adjourn our
Second.
meeting for tonight. Did we get a second? I'll
Second.
it. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye, unanimous,
Hi.
once again.
See you later.
Good
Thanks,
night,
everybody.
everyone.
Good
Good night, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Take care.